heading to Brooklyn to hang out with some of my military buddies for the Memorial Day Parade. Hope everyone's having a great day. Hello, friends. I'm here doing my first social media post, so forgive me if I don't seem like I know what I'm doing, because I don't. Today was Memorial Day. It was a pretty emotional day for me. I was asked to participate with a bunch of other veterans riding our Harley motorcycles in a parade out in Little Neck, Queens, New York. We unfortunately got rained out, so I didn't get to ride my motorcycle, but I certainly did attend the parade. I was honored to be asked by my good friend James McBride, Major James McBride. He's a Marine Corps helicopter pilot, decorated veteran, and he was the Grand Marshal of the parade. And he invited me to come out and join with the other vets and participate in the parade, which was quite an honor for me. I'd never been in a Memorial Day parade as a veteran. I had done it with other groups, but never as a veteran. So I want to tell you a little bit about, why why Memorial Day is such a big day for me. When I was a kid growing up, it was the day that I looked forward to the most. It was the best holiday for me of the year. Better than Christmas, better than Thanksgiving, better than any other day. It was the day where everyone in town came out, represented. It was amazing. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut, 11,000 people, mostly first-generation immigrants. Very poor, many veterans, and many people who had lost loved ones in World War II. My father was a World War II veteran, so I always felt proud about that as I was growing up. And then eventually I joined the military, and I'm also a veteran. But when I was growing up, that day was special. You'd go out there and everyone was there. The police department, the fire department, the paramedics, the mayor, the town council, every group in town, the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, the Little League guys. And then there was a ton of bands, including the police bands, the fire bands, high school bands, college bands, marching, professionally marching bands. I shouldn't say professional, but there are like competitions for marching bands. You may or may not know that. You may not be old enough, but so there was all kinds of music, floats, balloons, vendors. It was just, and the streets were lined, 10, 15 deep on either side. A little tiny town, but everybody was there, and it was amazing. And I'll never forget that. And the thing that I remember the most that really struck me, and I get emotional, I get teared up even today, and even then, was when the old vets, the veterans of foreign war, used to have a post in our town. Almost every town back then, you had a VFW where the veterans of foreign wars, which are typically for the United States, all of our wars, it would only not include the Revolutionary War or the Civil War, but most every other war we fought was a foreign war. So it includes most veterans, particularly World War II veterans, Vietnam veterans, and these guys would show up, in bad shape, crutches, wheelchairs. Some of them had to be driven. But I remember those guys showed up every single year. Every single year. And for a long time I did. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit ashamed to say it, but recently, in the last few years or decade, I stopped going to the Memorial Day Parade. I don't know if it was because I'm busy. It could be because New York City actually doesn't have one, which is quite surprising, which I didn't really pay attention to until today. I realized they don't have one, even though they have Fleet Week and there's all these military guys in town. I don't know why the greatest city in the world doesn't have a Memorial Day Parade. It just makes no sense to me, but they don't. And I had to go all the way out to Little Neck to participate in a parade. So, and also there were a lot of different days that we used to celebrate. We had Pearl Harbor Day, we had Veterans Day, we had VE Day, VJ Day, and today there's dozens upon dozens of additional days where we have days set aside, even months, to commemorate our military. But very, very few people probably know about any of those days. I bet if I went out and asked a bunch of people on the street, they wouldn't know what VJ Day is, Victory in Japan, or VE Day, Victory in Europe. Or if I mentioned Pearl Harbor, they wouldn't know it was December 7th. In my generation, we knew all those days, and we remembered them every single year because it was still close in time to World War II and Vietnam, and lots of people were lost. Many families had members that were lost. This again was prior to the Gulf, where again we went through another cycle of losing many people, and almost every younger generation family probably knows someone who either served in the military, was affected by the military, may have given their life for the military. So we now have another generation that sort of may pay more attention to the military. I was in the military right after the Vietnam War, and the Vietnam War was very disruptive to the country. It caused many there was lots of riots, and there was a lot of dissent on campuses, and that sort of struck a chord with me because I remember that in the 70s, and I'm started seeing what's going on campuses today is sort of a interesting dynamic, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute because it's strange how the dynamic had shifted over the years. And when I was when I was in the military was not favored at all. We were not considered, we were not honored. Matter of fact, the first time I ever had anyone say to me, "Thank you for your service," was this year. And I was in the military over 40 years ago, so no one's ever said to me, "Oh, thank you for your service." That was a new thing. People from Vietnam, no one thanked them. They were homeless. They have the highest suicide rate of any generation of military people. It's a tragedy how the country just completely abandoned the Vietnam War veterans, and it's a real tragedy. And we should think about it. And if there's anything left to do, if any of these poor men and women are still alive, because we've lost so many in the war and we lost so many since the war, it's kind of really a black mark on America. But anyway, back to the parade. So the parade was a really big deal, and I watched the old vets there every year. And I used to say, "Wow, these guys are amazing." They come out every year; they never forget. And it never really occurred to me at the time because I wasn't in the military. I didn't have that experience. I had my father, but I didn't realize how impacted the lives of those veterans were, who had lost their friends and comrades during these wars, and they felt this amazing duty and to never forget. And I realized that I had been remiss in not doing the same, and I will never abdicate that responsibility again. So I will never miss another Memorial Day parade for as long as I live. I can assure you. I had a wake-up call today, and I'm very glad I did. It was a great day. The other thing I noticed, which sort of ties into another topic, is who was at that parade. Now I realized that the neighborhood that I was in had a lot of recent immigrants from Asia, so there was a lot of Asian population there. But I would say, and I don't have any exact number, just my anecdotal, walking around the crowd. It was a small parade area, so I did walk up and down the entire street. I intended to try to film it, but I didn't do too great a job. I may have a few film clips that I'm going to be able to share, but I didn't have my expert producer, Jenna, with me, so the quality of the filming was substandard, if you will. But nonetheless, I did observe something. When I was growing up, it was mostly Italian, Irish, Polish immigrants. Today, I noticed, I would say probably at least, if not half the crowd, close to half the crowd was Asian and Latinx descendants of immigrants. And lots of young ones, lots of old folks. There was people there that clearly didn't even speak English, so they had probably been recent immigrants. And they were the most vociferous. They had the flags. They were yelling at all the groups, and they were cheering. And it was so nice to see, because if you listen to the media, all you hear is how our country's going to be destroyed by immigrants, how they all hate America. And that's just simply not the case. That is a political rhetoric on both sides of the aisle that people are using for political purposes, and it's really not fair to the people who are here, who are immigrants, and the people who just recently came. We'll talk a little bit about the issues on immigration policy and the border, that's all very well and good, and I agree with it all. I know we have a problem with immigration. We have a problem with the border, without a doubt. And we can't blame the people who are coming across, because they're all here just to get a better life, like my parents did, like many other person's parents and many people who are recently here did. They came for the opportunity to be American, and people forget that. And American means something. And when you see people who come here and they work their butts off, they take low-paying jobs, they do whatever they have to do to make their way, like my parents did and like many other parents did, you have to respect that. And I'm sure, even though there are going to be people that come over in the recent wave who probably aren't the same ilk, they don't have the same, fundamental desire to be American, or maybe they have other agendas. I don't know. I haven't met them yet. I haven't talked to them. I haven't, done the research to sort of make that determination. But I have to suspect, just by and large, over the history of America, people come here for the same reason. And eventually, if we do right by them and give them the same opportunities that we had and our parents had and our grandparents had, they will become loving American citizens, and they will love this country like we do. They will appreciate it. In fact, they may be better than some of the people who have been here multiple generations, who sort of have lost their way and don't really love America like I do. So let's give them a chance. I'm not in favor of just throwing them all out of the country. They're here because of what we've done, not their own fault. If we wanted to keep them out, we should have kept them out. If we wanted to enforce our laws, which already exist, we should have enforced our laws. But once you bring people in, and they're here now, you have to deal with that. And in the past, we had an amnesty program for this very issue. We let a lot of people in, and of course, part and parcel of the amnesty program is we were going to shut the border down, and we were going to have a rational immigration policy, which is what we have to come back to today. We need a rational immigration policy. We need to figure out how many people can we assimilate a year, and how many people can we provide for, how many people can we give the dream to per year, and we should do that. And I don't know whether it's a lottery system or people want to have one where you decide who's better for America, decide who's more American or who's smarter or whatever. I don't have a particular view on that, because I think it would be horrible if there's a rule that says you only have to be an engineer or whatever, because I wouldn't be here. My father was not an engineer, although my father paid a huge price to be an immigrant. He came here in the early 1900s, became an American citizen, joined the American Army, went to Italy, liberated my mother's town, married my mother, and came back to America, and they were, American citizens. I think, he paid a price. I think it was good that we had a lot of people who came here and then went back and fought in the war to save all of America. So everyone can have a contribution, whether you're doing blue-collar work or whether you're an engineer. I mean, we need to be careful that we don't end up with a system, and I've heard a lot of people advocate this, and I'm not there yet, that the system has to be sort of merit-based, based on, we only take in people with skills. I think that's a little bit unfair, and I don't think that that's really sort of what our nation has been in the past and what people here really believe. I think most people would want it to be sort of fair, that everybody would have a fair shot to get here. And I'm not saying that if we really need a particular segment, if we're really short on rocket scientists, and there so happens to be a huge amount of rocket scientists in some African country, and they want to come here, well, by golly, maybe we make a small amount of special visas for to fill those needs. But I think most of those needs, and I've seen the H-1B visa, I've seen all of these programs have been abused, and I'm not a big fan of programs that say one thing and do another. So I think we need to be careful when we come into these policies, and I hope our Democratic and Republican, representatives, finally come to their senses, figure this out, and it's not that hard. I mean, it seems hard, but it's not that hard. We've been dealing with immigration for 300 years or 250 years. We kind of do know how to do it, and we've done it well before, and I think we can do it well again. And it shouldn't be a political issue. It should be it should be an issue of why are we American? Why are we the country of immigrants? And how do we sustain that part of being American and being an American dream? I hope, that we, as Americans, live up to the ideals that I think made us a great nation, and that we don't sort of become this, immigration country, a xenophobic country, or whatever. We can't do that. I think if you start to meet some of the people that have recently come across the border and you start to work with them, I suspect you'll find they're just like you and me, and they have the same desires in life, and they are willing to work, and they are willing to participate, and they're willing to pay taxes, and they're willing to abide by the laws. Let's not write them off. Let's do something correct. Let's get in there and try to help. And let's have our and force your politicians, to the extent you can, and when you vote, let's make sure that they understand our goal to shut the border isn't to shut off immigration. The goal is to have a rational immigration policy, not politically motivated, not about trying to get more people into your party, whatever the motivations are. But remember, the cities that take in the immigrants, they suffer, and they suffer disproportionately than other cities. It's particularly the larger cities. It's particularly the sanctuary cities. It's particularly cities that have a large already minority population who are also struggling for resources from the government. And you're adding a huge burden onto the social infrastructure and the social safety net. So let's be more mindful of that and make sure that we do the right thing. So that's sort of my rant on sort of the immigration thing. And I just want to let you know I thought it was really, really uplifting for me to see the diversity of the crowd out there. It reminded me that I need to do my part again, and I will. I will certainly be supporting all veterans, and particularly on Memorial Day, our fallen heroes. By the way, I'm wearing my Guardian Revival T-shirt today. I got from my good friend Alec Othmer, who's a former Navy SEAL who runs a charitable organization that helps not just military, but first responders as well, healthcare professionals, anyone that's having mental health issues. COVID was not just a thing that hurt military people, but a lot of healthcare professionals suffered PTSD from the COVID crisis. So there's a lot of people out there suffering, a lot of suicides. We have to get our arms around it. And there's a lot of veterans group, and I support a lot of them. I work with a lot of them that are out there doing great work. If you know of any of them or you want to find out about them, I'll try to put them in some links on one of my various social media platforms that I've never used before, but I'll try to use them, and I'll put some of these great organizations that you can also participate with. I do quite a bit because it's great watching these brilliant people and the hard work that they do, and they do it out of their heart. So the last thing I want to cover a little bit today, and I don't want to bore everyone, but that Memorial Day has really been a big day for me. It's really set off a lot of emotions, a lot of thought, and I really wanted to sort of also caution people. I saw a blurb that the people were making, they put some tweets out there on X, or maybe it was, I'm not sure where it was, but I think it was Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush, and they said something nice about Memorial Day, but they sort of got it slightly wrong. They were honoring veterans versus people who sacrificed their lives for the country. And that's an important distinction because we do have Veterans Day, but I think that was such a nitpicky thing to go after them. Now, I may not agree with a lot of what they say. They say certainly a lot of anti-American things, and I don't forgive them for that. But if they're out there saying something good about America, even if they get it slightly wrong, the backlash that they had to take their tweets down or whatever, it doesn't make sense. Don't attack people you don't agree with who are saying something that's actually good. You should encourage more of that, hope that they say more good things about America, rather than make them, feel like they have to, retract their statements and, because everything has to be politically correct and just perfectly perfect. It doesn't matter if they got that wrong. Their heart was in the right place. They were thinking about veterans, and the fact that they included, people who were not veterans who sacrificed their lives. That's the rest of us veterans. And even families that lost people, they're not going to be so fussed about that, okay? They understand that you're just trying to honor our veterans and our veterans who lost their lives in particular. So let's stop that. Then another thing I saw, and I just want to point this out because this is the sort of crazy thing I've seen. I just don't understand why people feel the need to comment on this stuff. There was a police officer with a canine dog, I think it was on my LinkedIn feed, who was saying, "Oh, we need to thank our canine, heroes who also lost their life on duty." And somebody had to pipe in, "That's not Veterans Day. He's not a veteran, and it's not Memorial Day, and the dogs aren't." I said, "Look, just cut it out. By the way, thank your first responders. They have a tough job too. And I don't care if you get them on the right day or the wrong day. There's no reason to bash any of these people who do the dirty work, put their lives on the line for us. So, this is petty. Don't be petty. Don't jump in there. By the way, I'm sure I'm going to get plenty of comments and people are going to disagree with me. Go ahead, fine. I really could care less. But if you're that petty and you feel the need to do it, good for you. But I think you'd be better off, supporting people who are saying good things and stop supporting people who are saying negative things, because negative things are what sells. That's what the press wants. That's what you see on all these feeds. Everyone wants to say something negative. Let's try and do it the other way. You might be surprised the reaction you get from people. You might be surprised how you actually feel. You may not feel so depressed. You may not feel, so put upon. You may not feel so microaggressed. I mean, at the end of the day, a little bit of cheer, spread it around. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at that. No one is. But I do recognize when I see things that are petty, it just never makes sense to me, and particularly the nitpick. And I'm sure I probably said some things wrong today, and you want to fact check this, that, or the other, go for it. I'm happy to correct me. But you should understand my view here today is not to talk about me or anything else. It's about our fallen heroes. It really touched me. I hope it touches you, and I hope that you pay attention to that. And I want to say God bless all of you. God bless our fallen heroes on this Memorial Day. Everyone should take a moment to reflect and think about it, and I certainly am. Thank you.